5 things that happened after Jesus died. First, there was a strong earthquake that shook the earth as if responding to the recent important sacred event. The ground shook, the rocks cracked, reflecting the shock of nature before the departure of the Son of God. This event is vividly recorded by Matthew, highlighting its importance to the world. Second, an unprecedented event was recorded by St. Matthew, the opening of the tombs and the resurrection of many deceased saints. These venerable people emerged from their resting place, entered Jerusalem, and appeared before the crowd. This strange phenomenon cannot be explained solely by the geological damage caused by the earthquake. Surely this was a direct intervention from God, highlights the sacredness of the events surrounding Jesus' death on the cross. Furthermore, the tearing of the temple veil also had a deep symbolic meaning. As Jesus breathed his last, the veil between the Holy of Holies and outer space was torn from top to bottom, signifying the end of the barrier between God and humanity. This event, which coincided with the earthquake and the shattering of the rocks, further deepened the cosmic significance of Jesus' sacrifice. As we contemplate these events, it becomes clear that Jesus' death was not simply a historical event, but a pivotal turning point in human history. The resurrection of the saints and the tearing of the veil in the symbolic temple for the victory over death and the reconciliation between God and humanity brought about by Jesus' sacrifice. The temple curtain was the only boundary, separating the sacred area from the most sacred sanctuary. Its presence visually visualizes the distance between humans and gods, as Acts 6:7 reflects the obedience of faith of the first priests, suggesting that they recognized the great work of Jesus through the torn veil. The book of Hebrews 9:1-9 describes in detail the activities within the temple, where a curtain separated the Holy of Holies, God's presence on earth, from the surrounding rooms where people lived. The meticulous regulations of the First Covenant shaped the sacred rituals in this sacred space, with emphasis on the inaccessible interior, shielded by curtains of blue, purple, and red cloth, interwoven with linen. According to our belief, Christ ascended into heaven as a preeminent high priest opens the door for believers to enter the inner sanctuary area through his offerings. Hebrews 10:19-20 emphasizes newfound confidence in reaching out to the spiritual realm, powered by the blood of Jesus and the transformation through the veil of his flesh. When we look at this bigger picture, we see not only the tearing of the veil in the temple, but also the tearing of Jesus' flesh on our behalf. The book of Hebrews explores the profound meaning contained in the tattered veil, hung as an impossible-to-ignore reminder of man's unworthiness in God's presence. The annual atonement ceremony, juxtaposed with the daily sacrifices, is clear evidence that animal rituals are unsuitable for absolution. However, through the redeeming act of Christ on the cross, these barriers were removed, helps humanity approach God with new freedom and reconciliation. So, as we meditate on Hebrews 4:14-16, we find encouragement in the assurance of our great high priest Jesus, the Son of God, who has passed through the heavens. We are encouraged to hold fast to our profession of faith, for our high priest sympathizes with our weaknesses and has endured every temptation without sin. With this understanding, we can boldly approach the throne of grace, confidently receive mercy, and find grace to help when we need it. The tearing of Jesus' body on the cross and the tearing of the veil in the temple symbolize our new access to God. We are no longer separated by barriers. We have a high priest who defends us in the courts of heaven. At the moment of Christ's death, the thick veil in the temple, symbolizing separation from God's presence, was torn from top to bottom, signifying the removal of barriers between man and God. When Jesus was crucified, the earth reacted violently by shaking so strongly that it echoed into the heart of the Creator. From noon to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the gloomy atmosphere covered a large area, as if to prove the ancient prophecies and clarify the blindness of those who did not recognize the signs from heaven. This darkness, which was unusual at a time when the sky was at its clearest, could not be explained by an ordinary eclipse. This was clearly a divine act, marking the importance of this moment and also recorded in historical documents about the above earthquake. These events celebrate God's direct intervention and the sacred relationship between Him and the creatures He created. Through Jesus, we have access to God the Father, and because of His sacrifice, every barrier that separates us from Him has been broken down, allowing us to approach God with confidence and faith. Meanwhile, the sun seems to be hiding itself, timidly not wanting to shine, refusing to bear witness to the actions of evil people. Darkness suddenly engulfs at a time symbolic of many aspects. In ancient times, darkness was often associated with mourning and the death of important figures. Both Gentiles and Jews could perceive its significance as a cosmic sign marking the end of a ruler. Furthermore, darkness is also a symbol of God's judgment. When tombs opened and deceased saints appeared, as recorded in Matthew 27, 52, 53, this added to the mystery. The soldiers, under the command of a centurion like the centurion, accustomed to carrying out their duties with absolute integrity and detachment, faced these tumultuous events with courage and efficiency. During the chaotic scene of Jesus' crucifixion, even the experienced centurion, familiar with death, noticed something extraordinary. His heart, usually protected by years of military service, this time vibrated with awe and fear as he witnessed unexplained phenomena such as earthquakes, when he exclaimed, "Truly this is the Son of God." Mount 27:54. He recognized the innocence of the condemned man. This admission carries profound meaning, coming from a veteran with strong faith. Although he had witnessed many executions, this scene left a deep mark on his mind. The perceived condemnation on the part of Jewish religious authorities further highlights the gravity of this moment, revealing the innocence of the man he oversaw until his death. Commander-in-Chief Pontius Pilate initially favored condemning Jesus for blasphemy, but he eventually abandoned that decision, accepting stronger arguments against condemnation and recognizing Christ another way. In the course of overseeing countless crucifixions, this particular execution made a strong impression on Pilate. Scenes from Jesus' arrest, trial, and crucifixion come together to form a shocking story. Highlights how he faced the injustice perpetrated by his own countrymen, the brutal torment at the hands of centurion and his soldiers, and his calmness in the face of blood-seeking mobs. Although the crowd shouted for Jesus to be crucified, Pilate remained suspicious of their motives and repeatedly asked him what crime he had committed. Even so, their cries grew louder. To calm the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas and handed Jesus over to be crucified. However, his main concern was not to escape the incident, but to forgive those involved. Jesus' mercy was extended to those who rejected him, expressed in his prayer, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." While Jesus hung on the cross, suffering ridicule and contempt from rulers, soldiers, and even criminals, his divine nature was preserved. Amid insults and ridicule, Jesus' mercy remained steadfast and unwavering. Even when the soldiers offered him vinegar and mocked his kingship, Jesus' response was forgiveness and grace. The inscription above declares him King of the Jews, a title ridiculed by some, but acknowledged by those who witnessed his ultimate sacrifice. As the soldiers gambled for Jesus' clothes while he suffered on the cross, Jesus' concerns rose above his own pain. According to Matthew chapter 27, even in his darkest moments, Jesus focused on forgiveness rather than finding a way out for himself. While the soldiers fought over his clothes without understanding the significance of the moment, Jesus steadfastly endured the torment with his heart set on redemption. The reaction of creation demonstrated the seriousness of this event. The centurion, who was assigned to oversee the crucifixion, was deeply affected by the unusual events that occurred during Christ's last minutes. Seeing the ground shake and the sky darken, he felt terror and awe. Even for seasoned soldiers, the power of the cross was undeniable, stirring their hearts and promoting a transition from fear to faith. The foot of the cross is a symbol of equality, where everyone, regardless of status or origin, finds common ground in the need for redemption. From the 1st century to the present day, this is the place where rich and poor alike kneel before Christ, who died for them, recognizing his divinity and their dependence on his grace. The encounter with Jesus certainly left a deep impression on the soldiers. While tradition has it that the centurion, named Longinus, became a devout follower of Jesus, preached the gospel, and eventually died as a martyr, the story of his conversion remains still shrouded in mystery. Yet the power of the cross to transform lives is undeniable. While Longinus' story may not be entirely consistent with historical events, it nevertheless profoundly illustrates the impact that the encounter had on with Jesus is possible for an individual. In our journey of faith, the deep desire to know Jesus Christ should burn in our hearts, compelling us to seek closeness to the one who so generously loved and gave his life for us. As we reflect on the transforming power of the cross, hopefully we can move from mere observation to true devotion, so that Christ's sacrifice can shape and bring life to life. In our lives, we are closer to him than ever before. Jesus voluntarily offered himself as a substitutionary sacrifice, identifying with our humanity, thereby ensuring the grace of salvation for us and bringing joy to the Father. Although his separation from the Father was painful, it fulfilled a divine plan of redemption, revealing God's unlimited love. While there are those who may dismiss these events as mere myths or religious stories, they remain clear demonstrations of God's intervention in the course of human history. These events reinforce the truth of the gospel and the transforming power of Christ's love. If you found this message valuable, I encourage you to join us in supporting our mission by subscribing. Together, we can clarify our minds and deepen our understanding of these truths. Thank you for joining us on this path and wishing you many blessings in your faith journey.